Our next panel, which I have the pleasure of moderating as the co-chairman of the Digital Convergence Committee, is going to be on digital. Our committee sees as its charge helping our constituents educate themselves about emerging technologies and platforms that can help this whole sector grow. And today we have four leaders, leaders of companies in the digital space, each of which who are in the vanguard of helping companies like ours in digital place-based media. So we are properly mic'd. I am pleased to welcome Mikhail Damiani, who is the co-founder and CEO of Blue Byte. Hold your applause. F.K. Vanderberg, Director of Mobile and Digital Advertising at Sapient Nitro. Sanjay Manandhar, founder and CEO of Aerva, and Stephen Randall, founder and CEO of LocaModa. Welcome. So the format we're going to follow is similar to the other panels that you've seen today. Each of our speakers will have a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit more about what they do, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So you'll have a choice of, if you're shy, writing a card and sending it up to the stage, and I'm happy to present your questions as well. We'll have microphones roaming around. And so with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Mikhail. Sure.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Mic'd up. So I have a couple of slides here that I'll run through really quickly. What we try to do with these slides is really highlight different value propositions that you can achieve with mobile advertising campaigns. But before I get into that, I wanted to just discuss mobile advertising a little bit more broadly as it relates to integrating with digital out-of-home, and in this case, digital place-based media. And mobile is really a great complement for digital place-based media. Moreover, it actually, the two of them amplify each other's effectiveness. But what makes a mobile campaign effective? What we like to look at are three main criteria that we like to adhere to for every single campaign. The first one is relevance, and so that campaign, the experience, has to be contextually relevant to the user and their environment. The second one, which we think is the most important one, is it has to be valuable to the end user. If we're going to ask a consumer or person to stop going about their daily routine, take out their phone, and take an engagement, it has to be valuable to them in some shape or form. That could be informational value, it could be monetary value in the form of an offer, it could be functional value, or entertainment value. The third one, which I think is a little less important than the first two, is the content has to be exclusive to the mobile device. So to the extent you're taking content or an experience that you're repurposing from another format, that's not going to be as effective as giving the consumer something they could only get on their mobile device, and that provides an incentive for them to engage. So here's a campaign we did for a client, Hotel Tonight, which is a mobile advertising application that allows you to book last-minute deals. And where did we do that campaign? Again, kind of sticking to that criteria that I mentioned, we did that in an airport because we were targeting business travelers. So it was contextually relevant to the environment and to the people there. In terms of the actual value that was delivered here, it was monetary in the form of an offer. So if you were downloading the app at that location via NFC or QR, you would get a $25 booking credit towards your next booking of a hotel. And here what's great about it is how you can see the relationship between the mobile advertising component and the digital screen. And so what the digital screen allows us to do here is to accomplish two things. One is we're educating the consumer as to what is the offer, what is the value they're going to get, that you're going to receive. And number two is how do you actually receive that offer? What do you have to do as the consumer? What do you do with your phone? Do you engage via the QR code? Do you engage via the NFC? And how do you do that? And so that's kind of one of the major complements that the digital place-based media brings to the mobile advertising forefront is the ability to educate the consumer in that specific location and period in time. And so with this campaign, what we actually saw was we had over 55% of people who took an action, whether it was scanning the QR code or tapping the NFC, went ahead, downloaded, and signed up for the application. So if you take that exact same scenario and you transplant it into a less contextually relevant environment, that number would be significantly lower. Here's a very similar campaign. This one was done for New York Times in RMG network venues where it was more of an informational and functional value. That was the point of the campaign. But again, you have the digital screen here. You educate the consumer as to what is the offer, what is the value they'll receive, and secondly, how do you actually receive that value? In this case, it was the use of our M tag, which is NFC and QR, near the point of sale where they could tap it or scan it in order to gain that value. And finally, here's an example. In a shopping mall, the last value proposition that I mentioned is entertainment value. And here the user has the ability to download the wallpaper or trailer of the movie onto their mobile device via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, again, in a contextually relevant environment. Many of these shopping malls also have a movie theater attached to them, so they can download the trailer. If it's something that they're interested in, they can walk over to the movie theater, purchase tickets. And again, you can combine the different value propositions, and the more value you have in a given offer, the more effective it is. So if you have both entertainment value and, for example, on top of it, you layer in a monetary value in the form of a coupon or an offer that they can redeem, that makes that engagement that much more effective and valuable. And that's it.
There you go. Thanks, Mikhail. Now I'd like to welcome F.K. Funderburk. I think I got his title wrong before. It's Director of Mobile and Digital Merchandising Strategy at Sapient Nitro.
Yeah, I have the longest title out of the group, right? So let's see, what I want to talk to you guys about today is, and I'm sure you use these buzzwords as well. We talk about immersive, we talk about emerging technology, et cetera, et cetera. What I wanted to talk about today is kind of two themes that we use in a lot of our solutions. And one is personally relevant, and that's the whole right message at the right time. And the other one is experience. So we love crafting experiences and giving consumers the opportunity to be a part of the story that we're scaping. So the first one I wanted to bring up is resorts and destinations. There's a company called Brand Touch, and what they've done is they've created a very immersive experience that goes in your higher-end hotels, luxury hotels. It's wallscapes. You go in and you have throughout the actual hotel and the resort, the opportunity to engage with these walls, plan out your events, see what specials there are, see kind of what's going on in the resort, and it's an opportunity to kind of upsell and cross-sell. Right now, the way this is built is it requires the actual guest to go and engage with the wall itself. And where we see this going, and some of what we're working on right now, is take this a step further. And I think one of the gentlemen in the previous panels talked about when you think about new technology, kind of think beyond the partners you've previously used, think about newer and bigger and different ways of leveraging stuff that's out there, is how do you tie this to the room key? And we're working on projects right now where the room key is cognizant, it's tied to the loyalty program, it's tied to the actual guest. And as they go by, it's able to interact through RFID or other technology, and the actual wall can change and give a very directive message that's personally relevant to the person walking by, saying, hey, there's a show, hey, there's a special for dinner. And the more that person stays and the more they're involved with the loyalty program, the more those messages can be more and more relevant and more directed directly to the actual person who's walking by. So it kind of expands that footprint. So instead of saying, hey, come engage with this wall, you, the person walking by, take it to the next level and make it so where it says, hey, FK, we noticed this is the third time you've been here. We know you like to go see the shows that we put on downstairs. Let us tell you about the show that we have right now today in the resort, or let us tell you about what the special is at the restaurant. And it's all based on getting to know the customer and being relevant and being pretty much spot on at the right message at the right time. And the other one I wanted to talk about from a digital signage standpoint is something you probably hear the words magic mirror. And to me, this is digital signage on steroids, right? It used to be that you would walk in and you could say, all right, this is what the special is in the store today, right? They've got Izod shirts, they've got Tommy Hilfiger, et cetera, et cetera. And most of the signage was located in the area. So when you walked in, you saw, if you're in the ladies section, it was signage that was all about what was on sale or what the specials were in the women's department. And as you walk through different departments, you got different signage. I think that's all gone away now, or very quickly will go away. And what it's going to be, and what you're seeing now, is much more of a very, what I would call digital signage on steroids, but it's the magic mirror where I go into the actual dressing room and through RFID or Bluetooth or whatever technology, it's able to recognize me because I've checked in on the phone or I've walked through a geofence. The signage in the store knows that. I go into the actual dressing room, it knows what I've brought in there to try on, and I'm able to sit there and try each individual item on and then get a very direct and personal message from the sales consultant who could be outside on an iPad, or from the fashion consultant that's hired by the brand. This could be Marks and Spencer's, it could be Macy's, it could be, that doesn't really matter. The whole idea is it now becomes a very, very personal experience to me. I'm trying on, and as it gets to know me, it can say, look, we know that you bought these pants last year. This blazer that you brought into the dressing room today goes incredibly well with those. So it becomes all about me, right? And the more millennials are getting into this kind of shopping mode and going out there, the more it's all about them. So I think, you know, if you look at what's going on today and the way digital signage used to be very static, for lack of a better word, has gone now past this DPM and gone much more to a very personalized experience. I think you're going to see a lot more of this integrating with loyalty programs, integrating with not just the cell phone, but the actual, what the associates on the floor have when they walk around with the actual collaborative sales tool on an iPad. Because the next step on this is I go in and I try something on and it's the wrong size. I don't want to walk back outside and go find a medium because the large was too big. I would much rather tell the magic wall that then tells the sales associate who then shows up at the door and says, hey, Mr. Funberg, here you go, here's the size you requested. So I think really it's all about personal experiences and relevancy of the messaging. And that, I think, is all I had to say today on these examples. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, FK. And now let's welcome Sanjay Manandhar from Aerva.
So I have 2 videos, about a minute each at the start and a minute at the end. I think there's something here for brands, agencies, but also all the place-based networks. So should we start the first video? So this is from about 7 years ago when we were all about mobile and digital displays. Imagine you're in the middle of a soccer match, one of the 80 sports bars in Dublin, Ireland. It's all SMS-based because it was then. We pick up some of the first half action and remind you what it was like. And then it's all, as you can see, Budweiser branded. All we got from them was a logo. And then when enough people vote, this is what you get. It's not only engagement, it's metrics. And you know, the x-axis for privacy reasons. And that's what we're doing in these 80 different locations. So while we're technologists, we care deeply about user experience. And to this day, we talk a lot with brands, agencies about the end user is your customer. Is it a good experience for that end user? So the reason I put this up is to say, you know, I see a lot of visual wallpaper. And really, there's no need for it. There's a lot of technology providing dynamic content, user-generated content. And whenever it's user-generated content, you've got to have a little bit of hygiene related for the brands so that bad things don't show up there. We have a moderation interface for tweets, videos, images, text, what have you. But really, you could add a lot here so that you're not doing a lot of this visual wallpaper. Now I'm going to show you one other case study. This time it's in Mexico. And these folks first came to Boston in 2008. And they showed up, and 2 guys said, we want to talk to you. I said, who are you? We're disc jockeys, okay? And this is probably the only time that a prospect has given us a presentation. So look, we want to show you everything. We distribute music videos via DVD. And we have broadband everywhere in these locations, and we want to go away from audio only and music service revenue and go to the cloud to use broadband. And said, great, we've gone to the right place. So as a result, today, they're in, they do audio, video, interactive content, 800,000 visitors per month, and the demographics is highly desirable. They're in 15 cities around Mexico, 1,200 locations, and they're today the #1 place-based network in Mexico. And again, this is literally in 4 years. So really, if the network is there, you can also do many more things, right? So it was very easy for them. Those are the locations: Chili's, California Pizza Kitchen, Texas, ribs that are quite famous here in the U.S. In fact, most of them are U.S. brands that have gone over there. But the point is, now that they're a media buy, they didn't know they were a media buy. So we said, look, now that you have a network, you could actually interest some of the brands because the eyeballs are there and captive. And so as a result, although we're technologists, we said you got to approach some of these brands, and of course the brands were ready and willing. So today I'm happy to say that they have 3 revenue streams: music service, their traditional revenue, ads, and sponsorship dollars or pesos. So how did we do it? Basically, Aerva has a platform called Airwave. It's all web-based. So now they don't have to stamp out these DVDs. They can sit at home, beach home, whatever, and use their browser to continue to do what they do very well, which is put together the content. And again, because of the ad insertion, they need a very sophisticated reporting engine, which we have embedded in the platform. But at the top layer, we have what you saw with Budweiser, which is what we call mobile poll, but we have dozens and dozens of those, and they've started using those and monetizing those as well, from real-time tweets to picture-to-screen, as you're seeing up here at the conference today. And really, I think the magic of all of this is that the timing was right in that there's broadband in just about every venue in Mexico, and they've actually uploaded all their assets, and then they start creating all this beautiful experience. So the final video is their content where they put, and you'll notice the Budweiser poll to screen, except the question is different. It's in a different language, as you can imagine. So the next video, please.
Et puis seulement quand c'est fini, alors on danse, alors on danse, alors on danse, alors on danse. Et ben encore, qui dit proche te dit deuil, car les problèmes ne viennent pas seuls. Qui dit crise te dit monde, dit famille, dit tiers-monde. Et qui dit fatigue dit réveil, encore sur de la veille. Alors on sort pour oublier tous les problèmes. Alors on danse, 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 alors on danse.
So I think we should just stop there. We can do Q&A later, but as you can see, we're very much about user experience, and these guys are content people, and they're the ones that come up with sexy content like that. Thank you very much.
Now everyone really wants to go for beverages. Stephen Randall, CEO of LocaModa.
I've got to follow semi-naked people in a video. It's a tough one. I press the green button to start. So I came down to New York today on the Acela, and I forgot to pack an extra shirt, actually, yesterday. And so I went into Macy's, and the guy there said to me, so what do you do? Which is a question that I hate answering. So I said, well, over the road, there's a big screen, a Van Wagner screen with a beautiful application for Levi's. It's connected to Instagram. He goes, oh, yeah, don't tell me anymore. I get it. You create conversations with brands. And I said, you do get it. You do get it. It's a shame that most of the people in the industry don't get it. So I thought that today I would like to discuss something that I thought would be very valuable across the board, not specific to verticals, but some experience, because I think it's not actually about engagement. I don't think it's actually about technology. I think it's about amplifying audience and engagement, and when you do that, you create greater value for your network as well as for the brand. And I want to discuss a concept which is similar to a concept called total available market, and it's total available audience. Conversations don't happen 50 feet from your screens, from our screens. They happen all over the place. And the audience that's going into a bar, a cafe, or walking past Times Square isn't the total audience that we're able to tap. We're able to tap a much bigger audience. And I think that we're leaving money on the table, and I don't think we're selling ourselves properly as a result. So I want to use this metaphor because I think we have to do it in baby steps and not talk about technology first, talk about what the solution is and what the problem is. So this is a Gibson Les Paul. It's a very nice instrument. And it doesn't make a lot of noise until you plug it into something like this, and then it makes a total beautiful sound. And it needs some creative help, great guitarist, and that combination works beautifully, and you get millions of followers. And I think that our industry is a bit like that. I think the place-based networks at their best are like guitars that aren't plugged in. They don't make a hell of a lot of noise. And we can choose to be unplugged and niche, or we can choose to plug in to a huge amplifier. And in this case, an amplifier is something like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. The screen that I mentioned earlier, by plugging into Instagram, made the place much more relevant. It made tens of thousands of people want to engage and be there. And we've been doing this, like Sanjay, way too long. I hate to remember the very first time we gave this kind of talk, and everybody nods and says, that's really interesting. And then we go back and we do our siloed thing, because it's tough. But it's not about engagement. When you think about engagement and interactivity, you actually divide your audience. You might have 200 people a day going into a bar, and maybe 20 of them are going to engage. And so you actually end up with something that's cool, but not necessarily going to move the needle. When you plug the 200 people a day that are looking at that screen or walking past that screen into Facebook, where there's maybe 2,000 or 20,000, you can amplify your value by 10. And I'd like to give you some data on that as well. So there's thousands of people outside your screens, but there's millions of people everywhere else that could be interested in them. So 10x through many, many applications, going back many, many years, is the audience that we can amplify outside your screens. Would you rather sell 10 times as many or a tenth? And on Facebook as well, I'll show you a graph of an application here. The amplification works in both ways. So the Marshall amp actually isn't particularly interesting if you don't plug the guitar in. It needs both of those ends of the equation to be successful. So on Facebook, when you plug these applications in, the out-of-home screen differentiates itself from all the other applications in Facebook, and it becomes a really cool thing, a really interesting thing, and a really engaging thing. And people that are interested in your brand, in your place, in your genre, in your topic, in your campaign, then engage with your screen. They may not be in the elevator or in the bar, but they're on Facebook, and that audience is interesting to the brand, is interesting to the venue owner, interesting to the whole value chain. And that audience on Facebook can grow 30%. So that's also a very valuable thing. So here are brands that we've been working with in just the past 30 days. Gap, Levi's, and Paramount. I'm going to talk about one of these. Paramount were launching the Blu-ray version of Titanic. Like all of our customers, I said to them, how far do you want to go with this? Because you're buying signage, and not for very long, but the impressions they were buying were going to be 350,000. I said, how many fans do you have on Facebook? He said, 28 million. I said, why don't we plug the screen into Facebook and then have a 360-degree experience? Because you will get far more interaction than a percentage of the 350,000 that may see the screen. So in their case, because we're dealing directly with the brand, they said, that's a no-brainer. It's going to be much more successful. I will talk to the guys that have the keys to Facebook. Let's do it. I'll say one of the other brands we're dealing with, and this is more commonly the case, especially if we deal via an agency, and I'll shoot myself in the foot here, but more frequently the case is we're just the out-of-home piece. We don't deal with digital. We don't deal with social. That's somebody else's department. I don't care about that. So they're going to go down a path that's going to be less successful. But in this particular case, they did the right thing. And instead of reaching 350,000 people, the reach was over 5 million. They had over 440,000 unique users on Facebook, over 688,000 new likes. This is way more than they ever could have got with a disconnected experience. And time again, we see this. It isn't necessarily about standing in front of the screen in the bar, in the club, in the cafe, in the doctor's surgery, in Times Square, because that's going to divide your audience. You want to multiply it. If you look at the graph at the bottom, what's interesting is you see the pulse on their page before it's plugged into the screen. So as an industry, we're actually really good at improving the health of the Facebook side of the equation. You know, this works both ways. Why not sell ourselves as an amplification business? Because then a lot of the people that we would try to pitch ourselves to aren't actually that interested in the screens. They're interested in the audience, and the audience isn't always in front of them. So I think this is a pretty insightful experience. Bottom line, because it translates at the end of the day to sales. The Blu-ray sales were $34 million, which was more than 25% of all of the DVDs sold for Titanic over the last 10 years. I'm not going to claim that that's entirely down to our application, but the strategy for this group was to be connected and reach the consumer wherever they were. Go where the party is. Don't just do the cool stuff. Go where the party is, and in their case, the party was clearly in Facebook. In Levi's case, they're doing a campaign called Go Forth. The party is on Instagram in a massive way. If you walk past the screen opposite Penn Station and new Van Wagner screen, you can see the Instagram pictures and very well executed campaign for them. So I'd like to leave you in summary. Think about total available audience, not just the audience in front of the screens. Increase your network's value by connecting it. Don't be unplugged unless you want to be an acoustic artist. Social media isn't just a cool thing. We're social beasts. We've been talking for a very, very long time. So it's about amplifying. And that amplification works at both ends. It's not only 10 times your audience in the place, it's a 30% increase on the social media side of the equation as well. So I hope that gives some food for thought. And my final slide is a picture of the screen in Times Square. So thank you very much.
Again, I'd like to invite questions from the audience. I thought there's some very interesting stuff put up by our panelists. Stephen, do you have examples? Because I think the amplification effect is a really important piece for our sector. Have you seen that in examples other than Times Square?
Yes.
Sort of, okay, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we've worked in the past with RMG, with eCast, with Zoom Media, and every time, I mean, you can imagine Words with Friends on Facebook. Well, if you're playing Words with Friends, actually, and people in bars, we had a word game called Jumbly, where we connected Facebook and an iPhone to over 10,000 bars and cafes, and people were completely addicted to that. If you disconnected those out-of-home screens, it was just another game of many in Facebook. It's not just Times Square. Times Square is a big version of this. It's a huge stack of amps, but it works, in your elevators. People will be happy to be on that screen.
Thanks. One of the things, as I looked at many of the examples that were presented today, and there, as I said, I think there's a lot of really cool breakthrough stuff, things that actually get people to participate. Can you talk about how clear or unclear your clients' expectations are in terms of defining success? In Aerva's case, talk about Budweiser, for example. What was set out for you, and how did you achieve against those kinds of objectives?
So Budweiser said, okay, we're happy to do this. We don't understand fully. And we said, it's a mobile poll, this is how it's going to work. But really, it was hard for them to visualize, or because it hadn't been done before. It was very, very difficult. So what they ended up doing is saying, okay, here's our logo. Good luck to you. That's all we got, just the logo. And our partners, our network partner in Ireland, signed up the 80 pubs and sports bars. And really, the pint jars that you see, there's a lot of math involved there for the bubbles going up and all that. So our widget developers, we call them, creative folks, who are sort of halfway between graphic designers, artists, and engineers. So these guys come up with these widgets and said, all right, we'll make it visual. We're going to make these pint jars. You're in Dublin, so got to make pint jars. So what they got back were metrics that they were not ready for, prepared for. And furthermore, because it went on, there's a soccer match every day. There's rugby. There's some kind of game every day. So they could tell that they could do almost longitudinal analysis. You do something on Tuesday night, and what kind of metrics do you get? You do something Friday, Saturday, what do you get? And it really helped them. There was no requirement at that point anyway for ROI, lift. But more recently here for Taco Bell, there was a requirement for Doritos Locos Tacos to be the most popular product. And it became number one. And typically their number one contributes 10% of the revenue mix, and in 6 months. Doritos Locos Tacos contribute 12% of revenue mix in 3 weeks. So, and this back to Stephen, what he's saying, they took social and put it out of home. And our extension to that ideation was, wait a minute, even a busy place like Times Square, it's 100,000 people per day, going through it, and it's a very busy place, busy messaging-wise as well. Why don't you take, with some cameras, take that message that, in this case it was tweets, take live moderated tweets and put it back on social. So complete the circle, sure. And there are billions more out there.
Those are both great examples. Who bought those? Was that from an agency? Was that client direct? Was that regional, national?
It came through a client. It came through the agency that came with the initial kernel of this idea. And we did the extension of the idea. And if you're asking, who are the stakeholders within the agency, it was both creative and media and social people. And
I find most of those things are driven by the brand, so the agency has to behave themselves.
Interesting, right? FK, same question. From your standpoint, you're dealing, it seems that your clients are more the retailers themselves, is it correct to say? So are they setting clear goals for you, and how do you measure up against those things at this point?
So I think there are two answers to that. So half of what we do, clients come to us and say, look, I've got an idea. And they tell us this is what we want to do, and then it's up to us as a partner to say, well, what are you trying to do? What's your critical success factors? So I think the first part of that is when the idea comes from a client or from a client's agency, it's really sitting down and managing those expectations, because they're already going to have some, and you have to be able to say, you can absolutely do that, this will work. I don't think that's really the response you're going to get based on the type of activation you want to do. And then the other one is for clients where we already have a relationship and we come up with an idea, it's up to us to go tell them, look, this is what you can expect, and this is the value of that. And honestly, if you're hiring an agency, the agency has to be able to tell you what to expect. You can't just say this is going to be a great idea and we're going to get all these impressions and that's going to mean what. So I think you have to be proactive in telling your partners what they can expect and then managing against that.
And because that stuff really is on the bleeding edge at this point, absolutely. Are the expectations very high, or do you feel like you're meeting them? What's the feedback you're getting?
So honestly, as long as you do it up front with this is what to expect, yeah, you manage against that. So feedback's very positive. Yep. Yep. What we're trying to do with the magic mirror, is we've integrated that into social media as well. So it's one of those so for the first 6 months, we just want to get buzz. We want people to know that you can do this. We want to know that they're going to get a fantastic personalized service.
Right.
And that's your first kind of what you're going against. And then once that buzz is out there, it's okay, what's the next critical success factor for this experience? Is it sales? Is it use, et cetera, et cetera? And from all of these things that are out there, one of the biggest benefits clients get is the data. Who's doing what they're doing on it, how long, and you use that to do the next iteration. So data is the new oil. There's no question about it, so yeah.
Mikhail, you've seen the same thing? Are the expectations set clearly in advance when you have a campaign going in?
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the advantages we have, whereas many agencies and brands that we're doing campaigns with for the first time, it's the first time they've ever done that type of campaign, whereas we've had prior experience deploying that type of campaign for another client. And so we could set expectations based on prior results of other campaigns, and we try to set those as realistically as possible based on those prior results, and that's worked really well for us, as FK just mentioned. As long as you set those ahead of time, then it's...
Any questions coming from the audience? I haven't had any cards handed to me. Anyone with a microphone? All right, we'll keep going. With the exception of Stephen's program for Titanic, it seemed like these ideas, while interesting and while effective, are almost one-offs. They are disintegrated in some respects from other messages and other campaigns being put together by the brands. Am I right or wrong in saying that? I'll start with you, Mikhail. And how do you see cross-platform planning starting to work its way into these perhaps isolated programs?
I'd say that was true before. So when we first started back in 2007, that was more true. More and more, this is becoming part of that integrated campaign. And so right now we're doing a campaign that we started actually in Q3 for a large handset manufacturer. That was an out-of-home campaign with NFC. And throughout Q3, the program did exceptionally well. They extended that into Q4. We're doing that right now in airports and movie theaters and shopping malls and college campuses. And it's actually part of a much broader campaign where they're actually raising awareness specifically for that campaign through use of TV, through the use of Facebook, through the use of other online. So I think whereas a couple of years ago they were a lot more siloed, these types of campaigns, at this point in time it's getting to a point where you can use the other media types to drive engagement, specifically in mobile or out of home.
Stephen, same question.
Did you say Stephen?
I did. I said same question.
Okay.
You're Stephen. And
Yeah.
I say the same.
Well, it's a softball question.
Yeah.
I think that there's not enough of these campaigns, but I truly believe that networks that are not part of a bigger ecosystem are going to die. So if there are one-offs at a network level, then that's a warning sign to the network. More and more campaigns from TV and radio and other traditional media are integrating into social media. And we often get the panic call that, we've got to do something with social and mobile, you're the experts. We don't know what we're doing. That's happening more and more frequently. But I think, if you ask the question differently, I think it's all too often tactical rather than strategic. And it needs to be strategic because it should be an approach across the board that this media is bought with this media because they complement each other and they amplify, and that's very rarely the case.
You're really on my next question. I mean, how would you propose that it elevate itself to become more strategic? I
think we, as an industry, need to get our shit together. I think we need to be more collaborative amongst networks, do things in a more uniform way, and share more successes.
Sanjay, I wanted to ask the same question
so,
of you. Yep.
Kind of like Mikhail, several years ago, it was all one-offs. Let's do something whiz-bang cool. Now, more and more, I see integrated campaigns being put together where we're only a small piece. Again, back to the, Taco Bell, Doritos Locos Tacos campaign. I was seeing, TV spots. I was hearing it in Pandora. And that also contributed to this lift, right? They were surprised. In fact, the whole QSR industry is abuzz about that particular execution. Our piece was, the live moderate tweets to two billboards, Clear Channel, Times Square, and Van Wagner in Sunset. But Dr. Dre, Beats by Dr. Dre, which is happening today, is also a lot more integrated. And clearly, I'm not on the agency side, but I think there's a big sea change happening there as well. Otherwise, clearly, I think, we need more of these. And, but I think something's going on. And if we are a harbinger of things to come, I think a lot more people are getting organized. And I think the real driver is not really the brands. Of course, it's the, cutting-edge brands, but it's really the users. The users are not thinking in silos. They're thinking, wherever I go, I should be able to have the same experience. Facebook, Twitter, out of home, wherever. And that's why I think the brands that are really listening to them are translating that into a lot more integrated campaigns.
But there's no cross-platform standard that's been communicated to the agencies that we can do this, and that's something that we could sort out pretty easily. I think if we say more openly, we can do this. This is simple. The technology has been solved years ago. And Sanjay and I have been doing this for way too long. The technology has been solved. The party's already happening on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We can connect them. As an industry, we can connect them. And whether it's on your screens or RMG screens or, there's flavors of this that work across the industry instead of having to work with one network in a siloed way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make an excellent point. And I think there are things that we can do as a sector to work more together to integrate and make things simpler, to plan by and have bigger ideas. But I think the point that I wanted to hone in on is more about, as you guys have talked about, social. Have you seen any uses of the data? Have you seen anything where digital place-based, beyond an active share, has been able to tie in the data about our audience with the specific audiences that are using our screens or anybody's screens to tweet, to go to Foursquare, which we haven't really talked about at all today?
There have been examples of that, but they're far and few between. There are also aspects of measurement that are not necessarily desired on the agency side if it's still experimental. So I think as somebody else earlier said, it's all about, are people engaging? Wow, it does work, now what? We give them the data and they can decide what to do with it. We've had data that suggests this is the best time to actually advertise. This sort of technology is being used to compete with Nielsen on where's the most effective place on TV to advertise, because we know who's talking about your brand and where they are. So this technology is absolutely disrupting the industry, and we can't afford to be left behind as a DPAA-focused group.
Yeah, I agree with you. Have you seen examples? I continue to believe there's some really cool stuff going on out there. The guys at AdSpace have launched an app that lets you get deals when you walk into the mall. Mm-hmm. That mobile is going to be essentially the mouse that makes these screens interactive. Is the best example that you've come up with at Blue Byte, the Hotels Tonight download? What are the value propositions that each of you have seen that have gotten people to use mobile most to interact with digital place-based?
The Hotel Tonight is a good example. Again, I think the number one thing is it has to be relevant. So after the actual value proposition is there, monetary works very well, and entertainment, especially those two combined, work probably the best. And then after that, really engagement is a function of the relevancy of the actual campaign and the environment. So yeah, the Hotel Tonight is a great example. As I said, the one for the large handset manufacturer that we're doing right now across those various examples is also good. You have other factors also on top of relevancy and context, such as dwell time. So things, you have 3-4 major factors that affect how effective that campaign is going to be. So to the extent you have somebody that's dwelling in front of your screens for 30 minutes or an hour versus just walking past it, you have to take that into consideration as to what that engagement is going to be to maximize their use of time.
Just and I want to get the answers from the rest of the panelists, but anthropologically, behaviorally, what have you seen in terms of people's willingness to walk up with a mobile phone and do something with that mobile that's on or near a screen? What's been working best? What's been working not quite as well as you'd like it to?
Yeah, I think really the content is the most important thing, and to the extent we are taking time out of that person's day to take out their phone, engage, it has to be a very simple engagement, so the instructions have to be really clear, and I think that's one of the main benefits that are provided to us with the digital place-based media, with the digital screen itself, is the instruction and kind of expressing and explaining to the user, this is the value you're going to get. And then past that, the content itself, what we're doing right now with the handset manufacturer, we're giving away free content. So if you create very little hurdles for the consumer to engage, so if you have more steps in the process, that's going to detract from the actual experience. And if you make it really simple where they can come, they can tap, they can scan, it's really not about the technology, as I think a lot of people on this panel said during their presentations. You make it really simple for them to come and engage and get that. That's really what's going to drive the most interactions, because they don't have a lot of time. They're not really standing in front of the screens for 5-10 minutes. And if you can give them something relevant, something really good, and allow them to get that in a quick and easy manner, that's going to give you the best campaign.
Thanks. FK, can you talk about mobile integration and what you're doing at retail with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you made the best point. Consumers are driving this, right? And I want to talk about whose store I was visiting, but we're at a major retailer, and they had recently redone their digital signage, and it was still fairly static. And I was talking to them about mobile, and they said nobody's going to come in here and actually whip out their phone. And everybody who was walking in at the gate where we were standing was checking their phone. And I said, look, all you got to do is have a geo fence that just says, hey, if you're a loyalty member today, 5% off. Like all you have to do, just one little thing to get the spark started. So, you know, what we're seeing now, and you look at the travel industry as well, people, you use your phone for everything when you travel now, to manage all of your appointments, your flight, to find out if it's late or not. So now you see, like, we have Ionos in certain airports now that actually lets you know, hey, while you're waiting on your flight, you can go ahead and grab something to eat right here that's only 2 doors down, and you're not going to be that far away from the gate. So yeah, absolutely. I think consumers are what are driving the changes. And mobile, and the way mobile integrates with in-store experiences or in-venue experiences is a large part of that.
What have you learned about upselling? I mean, are there concrete cases that you've worked on that you could talk about a little bit, where people have interacted with mobile and something that might have been a digital sign in the store to generate specific sales?
Yeah, you know, without using client names or anything, what we've seen is delivering the message. If you know what the person is doing and what they're in the store and what's in their shopping cart, so to speak, and you're able to message to them actively saying, hey, buy one, get one free, there's a BOGO going on, et cetera, it directly impacts. And that goes back to what I think Leslie was talking about with recency. So recency could be 2 days back, it could also be very timely and on the spot. So we are seeing it impact shopping cart size.
Sanjay, mobile integration, I mean, you showed a great case.
Yeah, you know, we've been mobile plus digital displays from day one.
Yeah.
And in fact, part of the reason we had to launch in Ireland is because I couldn't, repeat what SMS stood for in the US. And I said, look, maybe this is a bad signal. I better go where they do this, fluently. But of course, as you know, in Europe, it was driven by the teen market for really, because of pricing. You could send 24 SMSs for the same 2 minutes that it cost you to talk to someone. So really, it started like that. But again, teenagers are teenagers everywhere. Why stay in the UK, Stephen's fine country, where there are only 60 million people? Why not do it where there are 380 million people? And hence, I said it's just going to be lagging by a little bit, but it is going to happen here. And that trend is still true today, because one anecdote, one of our advisors, he has a 16-year-old son, and it just happened to be like a little experiment, but he gave this kid, his son, 50% off, but he had to use scissors and cut out the coupon, and then he was going to get for Nike shoes, and he was going to get 20% off, on his phone. I mean, he was never going to go anywhere near scissors, This is not his thing. But as soon as it came on the phone, he immediately started using it. So there's a huge demographic, bend to mobile. Having said that, again, back to Europe, it became a business tool. It became everyone's tool, not just the teen market's tool, right? And you're seeing that here now. And also, we have to give a lot of kudos to the handset manufacturers and all that, where they've, almost everything's finger DM now, right? So everything's touch. So the interfaces are more intuitive, and the features are more integrated. Back in the day, you carried 2 different devices, a phone and a PDA. You knew that was coming together. Then they put a camera, accelerometers, and now I still have 2 things. I have my device and a wallet, and that's coming together, as you can tell, right? So yes, mobile is a huge part of everything, and there's a demographics bend to it, but we cannot lose sight of it.
Stephen, the last word on mobile integration, the best integrations of mobile and digital place-based you've seen.
It's obviously happening. It's way further out than any of us would like to admit. The reality is that you have a black hole when you talk about mobile, because it's one word, but it means a lot of things to different people. I like to think that our audience is mobile, and so we can reach them in all sorts of screens. And you don't just solve a problem by having a mobile application, a client-side application, because you then have the discovery of the application as a problem. And if you walk into Walmart, do you have a Walmart app? Or if it's a Nike shoe, you have a Nike app, and then you have a Wall Street Journal network app, because everybody wants their own apps, and it's very often in the agenda of the vendor and the agency to develop their own apps. So all of that has to be worked out. It's frequently not the case. I mean, Starbucks is a wonderful exception, that consumers will download a specific app to do a specific thing. So my mantra is you go where the party is, and that is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and you amplify. You don't want to have 200 people, and if only one of them has the right phone with the right hardware, you've got a 1 in 200 chance instead of a 2,000 chance by multiplying it by 10.
Thanks. Any questions? We're basically out of time, but if there's anybody that wants to ask a question, now would be the time. Great. Well, listen, I want to thank Stephen, Sanjay, FK, and Mikhail for a great conversation. Thank you very much.